Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about tactical marines or Gabriel Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
Drumroll.
Yeah, professional outfit this is, absolutely. Yeah. without
Howdy doodly doo.
Howdy doodly doo. My name is Talkie the Toaster. Probably be better content if we were a toaster than if we were two random weirdos talking about Warhammer stuff on the internet. But there you go. Hello, everybody.
That's a great cold open.
Dr. Nick. Yeah.
Welcome to a Two Grots special.
Yeah, because Tony, for some reason, has decided that he would like a child, which has meant he's got no sleep whatsoever the past, 2-3 months, however long it's been, give or take. And has just been given like a weekend away. So decided that he didn't want to film Warhammer content for you lot and instead go away for a weekend away with his wife while somebody looks after the baby. So I can't imagine why he would have done that.
I was going to say, living the dream, that is.
There you go. So you're stuck with the two of us, everybody. And this week we are going to be going through card by card the Leviathan chapter approved mission deck, specifically related to the secondary objectives. And we're going to look at what they all are, what you might want to include in your list on how to score them, and what sort of tactics you might want to do to bear in mind and plan that these things, assuming that you're going tactical and not fixed objectives, to make the most points in your games.
Have they said when they think any sort of chapter approved will come out for 10th edition, or have they not said that?
GW have been very careful to say nothing along those lines whatsoever.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well, because at this point Leviathan's almost been out like 2 months, right? Came out at the end of June.
About that.
So I can't imagine that they're going to want to sell you a card deck every 6 months. So hopefully this video...
I'm sure they would love to, well as whatever chapter approved book there is, yeah. But the other interesting thing is that as of the most recent General's Handbook, which is the Age of Sigmar version of chapter approved, that has now stopped being every 6 months and they're now going to every year on that.
Okay.
Which is also curious because they've just released one, so general consensus is they're going to be releasing Age of Sigmar 3rd edition next summer, because that will have been their 3-year cycle, so there might not be another General's Handbook, and they might change things up all over again. But at this point, fuck knows. Nobody has any ideas.
Okay, so we have no ideas, but hopefully this video will stand the test of time and we can tell you what secondaries are good. We're going to be starting with the fixed secondaries.
Yeah, we'll give you a few months worth of gameplay out of this stuff. So
there's 7 fixed, and there's 9... I guess it's kind of weird because the fixed ones are also tactical. So there's 7 fixed and tactical, and then there's 9 just tactical. Is that how you would say it?
How about non-fixed?
Non-fixed. Okay.
Whatever. It's all good. I got my cards in front of me, but it's kind of pointless because I've got them on the screen as well, so I don't know why I bothered to bring my cards in front of me. Just read them on the screen.
You're well prepared. Get your cards out, guys, and follow along.
Yeah, absolutely. They've even got condoms on them. It's great. Look.
They're
all like sleeved. Yeah, there we go.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we just start with Storm Hostile Objective? And this is a fixed or tactical. At the end of your turn, if either of the below conditions are satisfied, the secondary mission is achieved and you score 4 victory points if you're using fixed, and 5 if you're using tactical. You control 1 or more objective markers that were controlled by your opponent at the start of your turn. Your opponent did not control any objective markers at the start of your turn, and you control 1 or more objective markers that you did not control at the start of your turn. So basically you are just taking an objective that was either uncontrolled or controlled by your opponent.
Yeah, near enough. So I guess what you realistically want for this is speed, or possibly... you're going to want speed one way or the other to get a unit to where it needs to be. And then you're either going to need to melee the crap out of whatever you get there, unless you're going to out-obsec them and sit on the objective and not have to worry about it, or be able to shoot things off and then move things onto the objective. Either way, you've got to have something with, one assumes, a reasonable level of OC, able with speed enough to move onto the objective.
Yeah, I guess both, and then it's important to note that they specifically call this one out that cannot be scored in the first battle round, which is kind of strange because some of the other ones, like the very next one behind enemy lines, they don't call that out as not being able to be scored in the first battle round, and I actually find that one much harder to score in the first battle round.
That's probably the point. If you draw first turn, then that is 5 points for you because your opponent's not going to be on some objectives. You're all but guaranteed that unless they've
I
got
see.
some
Oh,
really
I never
balls
thought of it that way. Okay,
infiltrators. Then you could just like go out there and get it based on a dice roll rather than skill at the gameplay.
true. So 4 points if it's fixed and 5 points if it's tactical. I guess if you wanted to take this fixed through the entire game, do you like that?
Probably
I guess
not.
that, yeah, me neither. I think that would be maximum of 16 points, I guess, if you took it fixed through the entire game.
It'd be really fiddly to just like keep taking things and not taking things, and if you wanted reliable points, then that wouldn't be a way to get them, really.
No, I think you're right. And I guess it's actually kind of hard to know what the maximum you can score from a single secondary is now, because obviously if you take tactical, then your secondaries change from turn to turn, right? So you could, like, one of the ones that we'll get to scores like 8 points in a single turn.
Part of the restrictions for the game say if you're playing fixed, then you are capped. Then you take your 2 fixed objective cards, and you're capped at 20 per card across the whole game.
But in this case, you can only score 16 because you can't do it in the first turn, so it's even worse, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Stronghold objective, I think you would never take as a fixed mission, unless for some reason you're dead set on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It might be a laugh, but I wouldn't do it.
And I actually think this one is probably in the sort of vehicle heavy meta that we have at the moment, where there's a lot of things with a lot of OC floating around. I think that this one can be actually kind of easy to score because you put a few guys on the objective, you park a tank on the objective, you can probably unless you're playing knights, then you can probably out OC your enemy, even if you can't kill all of them.
On that note, the obvious, easy, amazing unit to have that will really help you achieve this objective, if you're going to be including them anyway, or possibly regardless, is an armiger, because they're OC8 and they're 12-inch move.
Yeah.
That'll take an objective off most things.
Yep. Armigers are very, very good for 140 points. If you can include them, I think you should include them. They're very good.
Alternatively, jump pack infantry can potentially be very good because they'd be 12-inch move, and being that they're breaching, they can also go straight through terrain while they're doing it, so that makes them exceptionally mobile. Also, Inceptors are potentially very useful for this because they can deep strike anywhere within 3 inches of an enemy unit. Obviously, you're only looking at OC3 with 3 Inceptors, but they can put out a nice amount of firepower if they come down, depending on what else is on the objective.
I was going to say any weak objective, they can. If you take the bolters, I think their bolters have like sustained hits too. They call a lot of infantry.
Yeah. Or if your opponent's left a single lone operative Vindicare assassin or something on an objective somewhere, you just drop down, kill the fuck out of it, and you've got an objective.
Joe, I haven't tried Inceptors into a single Vindicare assassin yet, but I would love to now you mention it. That would be a real screw you, Vindicare assassin. You can't be shot with 12 inches nonsense.
Yeah. I think Inceptors could become pretty popular if people are taking loads of lone operatives, which makes sense.
Okay. Will we do behind enemy lines next?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So this is similar, I guess, to behind enemy lines from previous edition. At the end of your turn, if 2 or more units from your army, excluding aircraft, are wholly within your opponent's deployment zone, the secondary mission is achieved and you score 4. If it's tactical, you would then get 1 more, so you would get 5. And if at the end of your turn only 1 unit from your army is within the opponent's deployment zone, then the secondary is achieved and you get 2 VP instead of 4. So again, this would be capped at 20 for fixed, but I feel like this is probably realistically also capped at 16, unless you're playing like something like Harlequins or Drukhari that can move far enough to get into your opponent's deployment in turn 1. I think that it's wholly within your opponent's deployment. So you need I don't know if there's any. I don't think the Space Marines have a single unit that could actually achieve that.
I'm not sure they could. You got a few infiltrator units that could deploy up to 9 inches from your enemy's deployment zone. You could then try advancing to get in there, but it's risky. It's not a certain thing by any stretch.
Yeah, so it's and then you'd only be scoring the 2 points. So again, it's a very difficult one to choose as fixed, I feel
Yeah,
like. Um, when you get this in tactical, because I've actually drawn this in turn one a couple of times, and it's very frustrating to get this card in turn one because, like I said, you're just not going to score it. But if you do draw it later in the game, like turn three or turn four or even turn five, then sometimes it's like an auto 5 points or something
yeah,
because you're already in their deployment zone with multiple units. So it's a
yeah.
good one to draw situationally.
If you've
Depends, I
got a
guess.
cheap 35-point unit of exaction squad sat in strategic reserve somewhere waiting to come on later in the game, they can do that. They've got a very small board presence due to tiny bases. That's all good. Again, three Inceptors coming in within 3 inches of anything are really difficult to screen out, so they're a useful pick for this sort of thing. Aside from that, anything fast, really.
I was going to say they're damn near impossible to screen out those Inceptors unless you got infiltrators, and not many people are running infiltrators at the moment. I think.
No, no. I'm coming around to the idea of running infiltrators along with the Phobos librarian, so you can't shoot them and you can't deep strike within 12. But I'm not sure. It's just like 160 odd points.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I
maybe
think
not.
the thing that puts me off is the points cost.
Yeah,
Um, I guess not being able to shot helps them a lot, but
yeah. What do you do when somebody drops in outside of 12? You can't really do anything to them with the Inceptors. I mean, the librarian does a tiny bit of punch, but not loads.
no, I mean they're just bolters with no
Yeah,
AP. Yeah, um, I think that's the one thing that I noticed as well with the change to strategic reserves, where in turn three the enemy's battlefield edge is open, whereas before it wasn't
yeah,
open.
that's
That
right. Yes.
makes, in some ways, that makes your infiltrators better because you've got more you need to screen, but
Yeah,
also kind of flips it for like if you're doing this secondary, then against most people, and I guess if most people aren't running infiltrators, then this becomes actually a very good scoring secondary. Um,
indeed.
so yeah,
And and as a counterplay to this, you might want to consider things that have got high range, or at least relatively high range within Overwatch, and auto hitting flamers. So, case in point might be the lovely Ball Predator's turret-mounted flamestorm cannon with its 18-inch flamer. So, if
yeah.
somebody wants to bring something down to score behind enemy lines, then you might be able to scare them off a bit, depending on where your ball is placed.
That's if you have just one ball. Some people are recommending you have three.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not exactly expensive.
No, they're not. They're not. Toughness 10, 100. Are they
Bringing
125?
bringing three of them is less than a quarter of your army. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Okay.
definitely good.
What's
Moving on
next?
then.
Assassination. When I first
Yeah,
read this card, I was
classic.
worried that there would be a situation where you cannot score assassination, but no, it's good. They have covered that. So basically, if you're doing fixed, each time an enemy character is destroyed, you gain 4. If you're doing tactical, then if you kill one or more characters, you would get 5. If you've
Yep,
killed all the enemy's characters, then you also get 5. So if you ever
yep,
draw this, you've already killed all their characters, then it's an auto 5 points in
indeed.
tactical.
It's also worth noting this is something that I misunderstood when I first came up against this in a game. If you're playing this in tactical mode, you just need to kill at least one character and then you get 5 points. You don't get more points the more characters you kill that turn.
Right.
So just don't worry about overcommitting if you're running it tactical wise.
I mean, this would be one of the reasons that people run a Vindicator Assassin, right? Just to
Oh
try
yeah,
and snipe away a character. A weak, just
absolutely.
choose the weakest character you can. There's 5 points.
Yeah,
Um,
Vindicator Assassin, Sniper Scout's obviously good for that for the time being until they stop being in the game, of course. But yeah, you're not wrong. Uh,
uh,
aside from that, charge a unit that's got a character attached to it and try and kill the crap out of it, or shoot the unit that's got a character attached to it and kill the crap out of it. You can always attack a character one way or another these days, whether it's attached to a unit you've got to chew through, or otherwise, which is nice. You can decide whether or not you've got enough firepower to try and chew through the units attached to.
I was going to say there's no janky bodyguard stuff anymore where you just fly out can't target the character. You could kill the unit and then damage would overflow onto the character because he was part of the squad, which is nice, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah, Assassination seems a pretty good one to draw. You probably don't want to draw it in turn one, but any time beyond turn one, drawing Assassination feels pretty good.
Speaking of anti-assassination jank, though, I was playing Gene Stealers the other week, and they had a thing where they had a. It was either a Brood Lord or a Patriarch. I can't remember which one of the two, attached to a unit of Gene Stealers. I always get them mixed up, so I just call them the Broodriarch these days, just to annoy people. And they use the stratagem that says every wound you do to the leader unit just gets applied as mortal wounds to the Gene Stealers in the unit with it. So I was like, oh, okay, why am I even bothering sniping this stupid unit anyway? That was annoying.
But yeah, in general, Assassination seems like a fine 5 point scoring. I don't know if I'm taking it as fixed. I think when 10th first came out, everybody thought like they were going to have tons of characters attached to tons of big units. I'm
And
not
early on, it
seeing.
looked that way.
Yeah, it
Early
did
on,
look
it
that
did.
way.
These days, you see how delicate infantry are compared to vehicles, and you try and work out what they add to the game that you wouldn't otherwise get. And it's like, do I really want to bring that many? Some do, but not everyone.
No, I mean I'm a Blood Angels player, and I'm spending like 110 points on characters and bringing a Tech Marine
Yeah.
and a Chaplain with a jump pack. So against me, you're only getting 8 points.
Hmm.
Maybe some armies like Eldar are bringing a few
Yeah.
more characters like
If you look at
Farseers and
a couple
stuff.
of top armies like Eldari, Craftworld Eldar bringing Farseers and Way Leaper Autarchs and stuff, which is cool. And Gene Stealers are bringing loads of characters alongside with their units, so they can just get them all killed and bring them back as blips and whatnot. So it is something that's worth making sure you have a plan in dealing with at the very, very least.
Uh,
But again, if they've got a lone operative character like an Autarch Wayleaper sat in their backfield farming CP, drop your 3 bolter interceptors right next to him, shoot the crap out of him. Assassinated. Done.
yeah, very true.
Toughness 3
Um,
Eldar isn't, even if he's got a 4 up in 1 saves, toughness 3 Eldar is not going to live very long against even 3 bolter interceptors.
yep. So Assassination seems like a fine one to still run. Engage on all fronts is an interesting secondary now. Because I mean we kind of know what engage on all fronts does. At the end of the turn, if you have one or more qualifying units from your army wholly within 3 different table quarters, and those units are 3 inches away from any other table quarter, the secondary mission is achieved. You score 4 victory points if you qualify units in 4 table quarters, or 2 if you have qualifying units in 3 different table quarters.
Yeah.
While a unit is battle shocked, it is not qualifying, so basically anything that's not battle shocked.
Yep.
When you draw the secondary card, if you only have 1 or 2 qualifying units remaining in your army, you can discard it, which is fine.
Yep.
I think that's good actually. And
Oh,
if you're
absolutely.
using
That sort of built-in redundancy is always good. I'm loving that they do this, because they did this in Maelstrom in 9th edition, and to see it repeated here in these cards is very, very good.
if you're using tactical missions, then you get 1 extra point again for 3 and 5, basically. The
I'll be honest with
issue,
you, I'm always playing tactical these days. I'm
yeah,
not
me
doing
too.
fixed
Yeah,
at all.
I think tactical is the way to go because tactical gives you the option to get that CP back, right?
Yeah,
If there's a secondary that you don't think is good. Whereas, like, if you've picked fix and you've got a secondary that just can't score this turn, you just get nothing. Whereas a
yeah. And
tactical, you get CP.
the fixed in general, it's hard to use and come up with a game plan where you can score max or even high amounts of points with just 2 fixed objectives reliably. So it's just easy to go tactical. Then you don't have to think about it, worry about it.
Yeah, I think that was the thing as well. Like in tournament play in the previous edition, you could basically win or lose the game on picking the wrong secondaries too.
Yeah,
You could lose a game in a tournament and be like, man, if I'd just taken engage on all fronts that game, I would have got 15 points. Whereas I took
yeah,
assassinate and got 3 or something. So I think it's good that that's gone, or kind of gone if you're going to play tactical. The issue I have with engage on all fronts, and let me tell you, is they fixed engage on all fronts last patch or last edition in 9th edition, where you couldn't do stuff like this with tiny little super cheap units.
yep,
And I think that was a positive change last edition because, for example, Sisters of Battle can bring Crusader squads, which are 20-point Crusader squads, which are impossible to screen, and they can sneak into any place anywhere because it's like 2 guys on 25mm bases.
yep,
That's back with a vengeance now, right?
yep. To be fair, Imperium in general have access to the exaction squads for 35 points to do similar sorts of things. And again, the Inceptors that I've mentioned are also pretty difficult to screen out if they're doing that, albeit that will only work really on turns 2 and 3 if you draw it in those turns. A librarian dreadnought could be good for yeeting infantry around the board as well if you're lacking a little bit of mobility. But ultimately, you're not really going to be playing the whole game spread out across the board on the chance that this might get drawn. So you're really looking to have this get drawn and then react to it. So once again, having 3 units that aren't really engaged with anything that are mobile is going to be a way to score points on this one if you're going to be looking at it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and when you get to the end of your list now, it can be hard to fill those last points anyway because of all the war gear being free. So if you have somewhere around 30 or 40 points, get yourself the exaction squad or get yourself some voidsmen, and
Absolutely.
they'll double up because when we go into engage on all fronts, there's a few other secondaries that overlap with it really well.
Behind enemy lines.
That's one, and the other one is the one where you scan the corners of the board. That one synergizes with this crazily. So having some cheap strategic reserves or just reserves can actually be really useful for the secondary. So I'm probably always taking some sort of cheap reserve unit in my list, just because it's too easy an opportunity to just be like, oh well, I'll just get 5 or 10 points even.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, so many different cards and objectives at the moment benefit from that it's well worth doing, and it's not exactly a huge points investment. Even if the models themselves, if you're buying the proper ones, are kind of hard to get hold of at the moment and also expensive. But yeah, they're not hard to proxy one way or the other.
No. I was saying to Andrew, because he actually went to the shop today to try and buy some because they're out of stock. I was like, why don't you buy some Tempest Scions and just stick shotguns on them?
Yeah.
Because that would be probably the cheapest way. And he has a big guard army. I was like, surely you got shotguns left over from your Imperial Guards or Scouts or something.
Yeah.
So, cool. Yeah, Engage on all fronts is fine.
There's probably a bunch of... There was a Judge Dredd board game a while ago, a miniatures game, wasn't there? You can probably get like Judge models and use them instead quite happily.
Yeah, they're probably very, very similar, actually.
Yeah. Anyway,
cool.
Just random thought. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Cleanse.
Yeah. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. The objectives in this area have been tainted and must be cleansed with ritual and purifying flame. In your shooting phase, you can select 1 or more units from your army that are not battle shocked and are eligible to shoot. Eligible to shoot, it's worth noting, is a defined rules term in the game, which I'll look up, and it's worth being aware of exactly what that is so that you can know what can do this and what can't. Until the end of your turn, the units you selected are not eligible to shoot or declare a charge. At the end of your turn, each objective marker that is not within your deployment zone that you control that has 1 or more of these selected units within range is cleansed by your army. If 1 or more objective markers are cleansed by your army this turn, secondary mission is achieved and you score a number of VP depending on the number of objective markers cleansed by your army this turn. If it's 1, then it's either 2 or 3, depending if it's fixed or tactical. And if you cleanse 2 or more objective markers, so there's no point doing more than 2, really. 4 or 5.
I can't imagine ever picking this on fixed again. Because, like, if you're picking this on fixed, you're going to have 2 units for the entire game doing nothing but cleansing objectives, which sounds madness.
I suppose it depends on how shit the units are, really.
Sure, but I mean, if I cleanse, like, I don't know, if I'm playing against you and you cleanse a unit twice with an exaction squad, the exaction squad is like toughness 3 with 1 wound per model. I'm just going to shoot and take out your exaction squad, right? Like, as much as your tank on the objective is the real threat, I'm going to be like, I will stop you doing any more scoring by shooting that one 35-point squad off the board, right? So, I can't imagine you would ever take cleanse.
Also, to clarify, because this is probably going to confuse a few people who haven't read these rules quite as detailed as some of us might have. Apologies if that sounded gatekeeping, that wasn't my intention. For a unit to be eligible to shoot, you do not have to have a gun. You don't.
Really?
A unit is eligible to shoot, is always eligible to shoot unless any of the following apply. That unit advanced this turn, that unit fell back this turn. That's it. That's the only criteria for you to be eligible to shoot.
If you advance and you have an assault weapon, are you still valid to?
That's a question for the definition of assault weapons, I suppose. Let's look.
Because that's got me confused now. I thought that Well, I mean, technically, if you advance and you have an assault weapon, you are still eligible to shoot, quote unquote.
Weapons with assault in their profile known as assault weapons. If a unit that advances turn contains any models equipped with assault weapons, it is still eligible to shoot in the turn's shooting phase.
Perfect.
So explicitly, yes.
So if you have if you're running Voidsman and if you give the sergeant a shotgun, even if everybody else in the squad cannot shoot,
Yeah,
you are still eligible to shoot because that sergeant has the shotgun and the shotgun
yeah.
is assault,
And
and that therefore.
cleanse clearly states in your shooting phase you need to be eligible to shoot, and yeah, this says that you are. So that's all good.
Perfect.
So what do you need for this then? You need things that aren't going to be shooting or assaulting, or you need to be able to live without their shooting and assaulting that turn one way or the other, and have them be near an objective.
I had cleanse just this last battle that I won, and I sat on it for like 2 turns, and people told me like, "Oh, you should have thrown cleanse away," and I was like, "Well, I possibly should have," but near the end of the game, when the game's whittling down, and
Yeah.
like in that game, I had tanks parked on 3 objectives to a point where I was like, "All right, I'm pretty confident I don't actually need my big tanks to shoot this turn." I ended up cleansing with my repulsor as one of the things, so I got like the maximum points for it. So yes, I could have.
It's a decision, but are you giving away 5 or 10 points for the turns that you could have been doing other objectives instead? If you'd done cleanse earlier, that's the thing.
I mean, I could have. I could have.
But then you'd have lost the firepower or whatever it was during those turns. So, yeah.
Or I could have picked maybe Assassination or something that I couldn't have scored, and I knew later in the game I was going to get a score cleanse. So I was like, you know what, I sat on it for a couple of turns. Maybe it was the wrong call, but I mean, we're all still learning tactical objectives, I guess.
Did you win that game? Did you lose?
Oh, yeah, I won.
If you won, then it was the right call.
Then it was the right call.
Yeah. That's an easy way of working it out.
Yeah, so I think you're never picking cleanse as fixed. Unless you've got some madness.
It might be worth making sure you've got some fast units with assault weapons, I suppose.
Yeah.
In order to be able, if you draw cleanse, so that you can like move onto objectives with an assault weapon and still be eligible to shoot. They can advance on. So I don't know.
Do you know what?
Like
Outriders with
jump back assault squad. Oh, Outriders, yeah.
Do they not get assault weapons?
No, their loadout is fixed, isn't it? Their bolters are probably rapid fire.
I thought it was like if a captain or a chaplain got attached to them, they became assault weapons. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's something else.
That does sound familiar, but
I thought maybe. Joe, I haven't run the chaplain on the bike in 10th edition.
No,
which is a little bit sad because he was like a core of my army.
Natively, the Outrider squad does not have anything with assault.
Yep. And the chaplain on a bike does not make them assault. Is that right? Or am I?
Let's have a look. Abilities. Gives them devastating wounds.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a land speeder with assault.
No, I don't think there is. Swift assault, that's it. The captain on a bike. This model is leading a unit. Ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have the assault ability. So I guess Outriders, can they be attacked? Can a captain attach to Outriders?
Yeah.
Captain on a bike attaches to Outriders. Okay, so if a captain on a bike was attached to Outriders, they could do cleanse.
I think GW made that decision because there wasn't a Primaris version of the captain on bike yet for them to do it with.
Maybe it will be coming. Okay.
Maybe.
I mean, that's going to come up in a few other ones where eligible to shoot, so it's good to know.
Yeah. Or alternatively, a Baal Pred, which its guns get to assault when it advances these days, if I recall correctly.
Yep. Okay, deploy teleport homer is our next one. Yep. So in your shooting phase, you can select one unit of your army that is not battle shot and is eligible to shoot. Until the end of the turn, it can't shoot or charge. At the end of your turn, if that unit is within your opponent's deployment zone or 6 inches the center of the battlefield, it deploys a teleport homer at the location. The secondary is achieved, and you score a number of VP depending on where the teleport homer was placed. 2 VP in the center if it's fixed, or 3 if it's tactical. 4 VP if it's fixed, or 5 if it's tactical, if it's in the opponent's deployment zone. And this is why those super cheap units come into play, because if you drew engage in all fronts and deploy teleport homer, then you sneak a super cheap unit into the back corner, you deploy your homer, which is 5 points, and then you also have a unit in that corner for engage in all fronts or behind enemy lines.
Or Inceptors, once again,
Yep. So it's almost... I can understand why people are taking like 2 squads of exaction units.
Yeah, just to spread them out to potentially score multiple things and all this sort of stuff. Plus, having an extra unit to sit around or come in where you need it is always going to be useful.
They're just so good at scoring. That's the bottom line. And you never know when you're going to get a nice turn like that where the cards align and you can just be like, aha, you didn't screen that one corner, I'm going to get 10 points or whatever it is. So deploy teleport homer, I think usually you're going to be able to do it in the opponent's backfield, but I guess worst case, if it's early in the game and you want rid of the secondary, you could just score it in the middle.
Getting into the centre of the field is almost certainly doable one way or the other, wherever you are in the game. The backfield is going to be almost impossible to do turn 1 for the reasons we mentioned earlier. It's going to be pretty easy to do turns 2 or 3, depending on what you've got in reserves or strategic reserves. 4 or 5 is going to be tricky because obviously things that are in reserves can't come on in those turns unless you put them into reserves during the game, which is a bit more difficult these days. But by that point, you might be spread out enough that it could happen anyway. So, yeah. Again, mobility and/or reserves proving a good investment in your list if you want to be looking to make the most out of these points.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's see what the last fixed one is. The last fixed one is Bring It Down. And this might be the only time I would think about taking fixed, but then I don't know what you pair it with. So each time an enemy monster or vehicle is destroyed, you score 2 VP and 1 extra for 10 plus, 15 plus, 20 plus wounds. So basically every 10 plus wound model is 3, every 15 plus is 4, every 20 plus is 5. VP are scored even if the model is destroyed and then subsequently is resurrected for any reason. Nice to see that caveat on the card. If you score VP from the secondary in a turn, then at the end of the turn the secondary is achieved. If you're using tactical, then the secondary mission is achieved. You score 1 extra VP. However, if you're using tactical, you cannot score more than 8 VP in total from the secondary mission. So if you kill a couple of tanks, you could actually score 8 VP in a single turn from Bring It Down.
And obviously the condition in which it would be useful as a fixed objective would be if you're facing an army like Knights, which kind of makes it a no-brainer, really. But then again, as the meta goes more tank-heavy and vehicle-heavy, maybe we might see this becoming meta. Who knows? Like you say, I'm not sure what you'd pick to go with it, but yeah.
Well, it would probably be more like an engage in all fronts pick or a behind enemy lines pick or something. But then I think those are... I think you're just better picking tactical overall. The fixed is just... Yeah, I haven't... It's Blood Angels anyway, I haven't felt like a real reason to ever pick fixed.
Yeah. You wouldn't Bring It Down against the Knights army and then pick a second one based on whatever you thought you could achieve best at the time?
No, because I think that, like, in some ways it's all your eggs in one basket. And also you lose that flexibility of getting a command point. Maybe, like sometimes getting a command point when you potentially maybe don't need to score can be quite strong as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I mean, in order to Bring It Down, you need to be facing preferably vehicles or lots of monsters, and you need to be able to kill them. So no real special considerations needed in your army to be able to score this secondary objective.
Yeah. So let's move on to then tactical only cards.
Indeed.
And the first one is No Prisoners, which is just anytime the secondary is active, you get 2 VP up to a maximum of 5 for each enemy unit destroyed. Very simple, No Prisoners. I kind of like it. It's just a simple one. You just need to kill 3 units to max it, or 2 gives you 4 points. It's still pretty good.
Yeah, excellent. And once again, just like the last one, just bring your army and hope it can kill shit. And if it can kill shit, you can probably score this secondary, which is nice.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways, because you're only taking it in a single turn, or you're only scoring it a single turn, it maybe just forces you to prioritize some of those low health units, finish them off, get your points, move on, I guess.
Exactly. Or drop something down, or use a sniper that can target a character in a unit. Because, once again, if a character's attached to a unit, and you kill the unit and the character, that counts as 2 units dead, not 1.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Defense Stronghold is a crazy easy one that you score most of the time you get. At
Which is
the
why
end
it's
of your
only 3.
opponent's turn, or at the end of the battle, whichever comes first, if you control one or more secondary marker in your own deployment zone, you score 3 VP.
Yeah.
It's important to note this is the end of your opponent's turn, not your turn.
Indeed. So they can potentially rush something forward with enough speed and or OC to take it off you. At which point, if you've left your home objective vulnerable enough to do that, then you kind of deserve it. Unless you're losing badly anyway, at which point it's going to be pretty tricky to come back, and this will help your opponent, which is not great, but there's not what you can do about it in that sort of situation.
No, what the one caveat to be aware of with this card, at least in my experience, is it's only a 3 VP card. A couple of the games that I lost at the start of 10th edition was like I would draw this in my final turn and be like, damn, I'm 8 points behind, and I've just got a card that's only going to give me 3. The other card's maybe only going to give me 4. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of be easy to score, but by being easy to score, it potentially scores less.
Yeah, that makes perfect logical sense, and we've seen that sort of philosophy applied across 9th edition, and obviously now with this one.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. Attempting target is an interesting one. I kind of like it. So basically, when you draw this card, your opponent must select one objective in no man's land. And at the end of your turn, if you control a selected objective, you score 5 victory points.
So kind of the opposite of the last one, in that your opponent can make this really pig and difficult for you to do. Based on where your army is at any given point. If the objectives are all spread out and you're in like this side of the board and there's an objective here that they've got some units on and they know you can't get to it, then you're shafted, really, aren't you?
Yeah. It's an interesting one because it can go completely the opposite way, where you hold most of the middle of the board.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, just tell me where I just need to stay and I'll stay and score my points.
If you draw it in the first turn and you've got 3 allied armigers in your list, which have all got a movement of 12 and OC 8, then you're kind of a shoo-in with this one, aren't you? So speed and OC and free units helping a lot with this one.
Yeah.
Again, the ability to drop things in from deep strike could also be useful. You're not going to find much use for strategic reserves with these ones, because your opponent can easily pick a objective that's not within range of a unit coming in from strategic reserves to score. But a unit that can come in from deep strike within 3 inches of an enemy unit, always useful.
Yeah, very useful. Probably the best way to play Inceptors would, assuming that your opponent has stuff on the objective that they can kill. Yeah. Cool. Simple but tricky, I guess.
Yeah. Are you going to play the game, do you think, worried that this is going to come up? Or are you just going to play the game, see how it goes, how the dice rolls, and if it comes up and you can't score it, tough shit, we'll have to discard it and either get some CP back or discard it for another one early?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question. Like, if you feel like you can achieve it next turn, would you hold on to it for one turn? I mean, it's a 5-point one, so maybe if you're convinced that you can kill them next turn, you know, like sometimes it could be worth holding on to. Yeah, this is a tough one. I haven't worried about it.
Yeah, you got to wait for the context, haven't you? You can't apply any kind of universal rule to it. You just got to wait and see how the game's going at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Area denial.
Yeah.
It is critical that this area is dominated. No enemy vanguard or guerrilla units can be allowed to disrupt our plans.
Sounded a bit like the Emperor there at the end, where it's like,
I'm afraid
what's
the Death
say?
Star is quite operational.
When your friends arrive, yeah. At the end of your turn, if one or more units for your army, excluding battle shot, are wholly within 6 of the center, there are no enemy units wholly within 6, you're going to get 5 points. Yep. If at the end of your turn there are one or more enemy units wholly within 6, but there are no enemy units within 3, then the secondary is still achieved, but you score 3 instead. So it's basically hold the middle, kill what's in the middle.
Keep it clear of enemy being there. Yeah, exactly. So potentially mobility, but since there's a few objectives that are prioritizing the center of the battlefield, whether it's actually an objective point or not, I think most of the missions have an objective in the middle. There's very few of the deployments don't.
I was going to say most. Yeah, I think there
there's
might be a couple
that don't, but it's definitely in the minority. And killing power. Yeah, just raw killing power, really. Resilience isn't really much of a big deal. You just need to be able to kill what's on it and have something there.
Yeah, I think like a lot of these secondaries are scored by board control. I mean, there's still some that's scored by killing, but controlling the board is, I guess, super important for scoring in 10th edition.
If your opponent has a vehicle in the center of the board, having a charging melee unit is going to be tricky because it's going to be very difficult for a melee unit, unless it's already like a dreadnought itself, to be able to kill a vehicle in the middle area. So shooting power is probably going to be more useful to you on this.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you hold the middle with OC or anything like that. It's just about killing.
Yeah. And proximity rather than OC. Yeah.
Which is a nice change, I guess.
Yeah, which means the Death Company Dreadnought could qualify for this one, even though it's got no OC, if a chaplain isn't nearby.
Correct. Yeah. That came up in my game actually because I had the Death Company Dreadnought doing actions, and people were like, "Can he do actions?" It's like, well, there's nothing that says he can. You know,
absolutely.
He's eligible to fire. So yeah.
He can't run away, and he can't OC, but he can like deploy a teleport hammer quite happily.
Raging Dreadnought. Deploy the Homer, yes sir.
Oh, I had great fun with 3 Death Company Dreadnoughts the other week. It was.
Did you do it? Did you?
Yeah, I did it a couple of times. It was ridiculously stupid, but it was very, very funny.
I was going to say it was 3 Death Company Dreadnoughts and 3
Brutalis Dreadnoughts and 3 Warglaive Armigers.
Wow, and that fits. Is that the whole list? Have you got room for anything else?
No, it's got it's got a Tech Marine in it. It's got a Vindicator Assassin.
Okay.
It's got a unit of 5 Sniper Scouts and a unit of 3 Bolter Inceptors as well.
Okay, and then basically the 9 armor units.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's funny because I'm playing 8 armor units at the moment. I think armor is just so much more powerful than infantry.
I just split them into 3 groups of 3. So you got a Brutalis, an Armiger, and a Death Company Dreadnought in each war party. One in the middle, one either side, and yeah. How can I make Sons of Sanguinius work? Well, the extra attacks really helped. I'll definitely go that far. Absolutely, yeah.
Nice.
It was great fun.
They would have advanced and charge helped you more, or you think the extra attacks helped?
They weren't slow. I mean, the Armigers go 12, which is fine. They don't benefit from the stuff anyway. And the Brutalis and the Death Company Dread move like 8 or 9 inches each. So yeah.
Yeah, and then you just advance them turn 1 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
They were good.
Man,
it's going to be fun. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to tweak the list slightly. But
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway. Perfect. Okay. So you're not denying any areas from that list anyway, but let's move on to Capture Enemy Outpost, which is a very situational card. When it comes up, it's 8 victory points if you can take the enemy's objective marker in their deployment zone.
Yeah, which is you either can or you can't, straight away when it pops up if you can. You either need something super mobile, you need to be basically winning already.
Yeah.
In order to be able to have the chance of claiming that as part of the normal castle battle. Or they need to have left it defended by a small unit they don't really care about, like Sniper Scouts or a single Vindicator Assassin. And you could drop those 3 Inceptors in again.
Yep.
Just sit on it and splat. Yeah, great, there you
go. It's a weird one that scores so many points, I think. Because it's a very AB condition, or what would you call it, like on-off condition.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the opposite of what we were saying earlier. This one's high risk, high difficulty, really high reward.
Yeah, really high reward on this one. If this comes up at the right time in the battle, it can just be such a good swing.
Absolutely. Librarian Dreadnought chucking an infantry unit forward if there's not enough stuff screened out of the backfield. But it's difficult to get something within 9 if they've left anything at all on the enemy deployment objective, which they probably would have, because if you don't, then you're throwing away points, really, aren't you?
Yeah. Unless you're silly enough to move off it with sticky objectives or something like that.
When super fast stuff or something like that, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Simple.
All right.
Investigate signals. Now, this is the other one that compares insanely good with engage on all fronts. In your shooting phase, you can select 1 or more units from your army that are not battle shocked and eligible to shoot. Obviously, until the end of the turn, they can't charge or shoot. At the end of the turn, each corner of the battlefield that is one or more of those selected units wholly within 9 is scanned. If one or more corners are scanned, then it's achieved, and you get 2 VP for each corner. So essentially, this is going to be capped at 8. So,
okay.
This is the one that, like, if you got this as a Sisters of Battle player where you had like 3 squads of Crusaders in reserve for 60 points, boom, you are scoring well. And if you lucked out and drew engage on all fronts at the same time, then you were scoring hella good.
Absolutely.
And it's so powerful. It's another one that just screams out like you need to have some things in your army in strategic reserves.
Yeah. Cheap units in strategic reserves is great. If you join this in turns 2 or 3, then you're good. If it's in like turns 1, 4, or 5, then you might struggle based on the mobility of what you've got, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Getting within wholly within 9 inches of your own corners of the battlefield is going to be tricky as well.
It's trickier, yes, I suppose. No, if you've got like 3 gladiator lancers, you're just trying to park in the backfield and shoot across the battlefield, though, with like their 10-inch move, though.
Or a whirlwind. But generally speaking, you're not parking them in the corners, you're parking them behind cover.
In objectives, true.
Yeah.
True.
Which, they'll still move a fair clip. So if they're not like in the centre of the field, they could get to the corner just to have something wholly within. Yeah. You don't want to play the game based on the possibility of this coming up, which means you need to have your list flexible enough to be able to achieve it should it crop up at any point. And like you say, the realistic way to do that is to do strategic reserves, deep strike, and possibly hoping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, I think turns 2 and 3 if this sneaks in.
There's a lot of strategic reserve stuff cropping up throughout this list, so maybe infiltrators are going to be a much bigger use in the game.
That we've been giving them credit, I suppose. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, when they fix infantry, they might get resurgence, because I do think they need to fix the disparity between infantry and tanks. But that's a conversation for the balanced data slate, which we will do live in a few weeks' time, maybe.
When it comes up in 4 weeks' time from the time when we're filming this, not from when this airs. So that'll be 3 weeks from when this airs. I suppose that makes perfect sense. It's also worth noting, as cropped up recently in our Discord, if you've got something that says it can deep strike within 9 inches or 6 inches or 3 inches like Inceptors, even that gets overridden by infiltrators. They just say, nope, don't care what your ability says, you're not coming in anywhere near me. So, yeah, maybe they're going to be useful as a meta anti-scoring pick more than anything else.
Could be. I mean, there was definitely a play last edition where you would want to run 2 squads of them almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to think about that one.
Yeah.
Overwhelming force, then.
Perfect.
Scour the enemy from the face of the battlefield. While this secondary mission is active, each time an enemy unit started the turn within range of an objective marker is destroyed, you score 3 VP. An enemy unit started... Okay, so... Note the VP is scored even if such a unit is destroyed and then subsequently resurrected, which is fine. If you score any VP from this secondary mission during a turn, at the end of the turn, this secondary mission is achieved and goes away, which is fine. So, kill shit that's on objectives.
Kill 2 units on objectives. Very simple. Max 6 points.
Yeah.
Shoot them, charge them, kill them however you like, I guess.
Shooting's obviously going to be easy because you can reach out and touch them from a range to do so. Charging is possible depending on what unit is on the objective and how killable it is based on the ability of your melee unit. So again, get offensive power in the right place at the right time to be able to score it, really. There's definitely an overworking theme with all these objectives, isn't there? Which is playing into how the meta's forming.
Yeah.
Or form.
Very much so.
Yeah. Right.
Extend battle lines. At the end of your turn, if you control 1 or more objective markers in your own deployment zone, I think there usually is only one. I guess on a couple of maps
there is more than one. No. Every single map only ever has, at least in the Leviathan chapter approved set of missions and objectives, blah blah blah. There is only ever one objective in your deployment zone. There's never more than that.
What about the map you can move the objectives?
I don't think you can move them far enough.
there's one where you can move them every turn, remember? But maybe that doesn't get played very often.
It's possible.
Yeah, so you control one or more objective in your own deployment zone. You just need to take any other one in no man's land, and then you will score 5 victory points if you achieve this. If you only have one unit in your army left, then the secondary is instead achieved at the end of your turn if that unit controls one objective marker in no man's land. But in this instance, you only get 2 VP. So I like the caveat. I like it when they fix some of these sort of edge cases where it's like,
which makes sense.
so it's nice. Extended battle lines is very simple. You hold your home field, you hold one other one. I think you score it
Are
most
you playing
of the
the
time.
game? Are you sitting on objectives? Can you just play the game as it basically is anyway? So it's like playing the primary game and get some points for it.
Yeah,
you don't need to be having any special consideration in list building or strategy to do this.
No, and I think that leads right into secure no man's land, which is basically the same. At the end of the turn, if you control 2 or more objectives in no man's land, then you score 5. At the end of the turn, if you only control 1, then you still just score 2. So it's like, if you draw these in the same turn, then potentially you like you said, you're just playing the primary. You're doing what you need to do.
You might be overextending yourself to hold 3 objectives at that point, both the home one and 2 in no man's land, but equally home and 2 in no man's land isn't that much of a challenge based on how the game normally goes. That's sort of like what you're aiming to score and hold throughout the game as a minimum anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are simple ones that let you focus maybe more on other things that turn, like what you got to kill or what you got to defend against or stuff like that. And
try to achieve them without overextending yourself to the point where you can get too much stuff wiped out from having moved things forward to achieve these. So just bear that in mind.
Cool. So we got final 2, is it?
No.
That was it?
That was it.
That was it. Well,
that was it.
What do you think of the... You know, I played Tempest of War, not Tempest of War.
Yeah.
What was the Maelstrom of War? Was that what it's called in 8th edition? And I actually kind of hated Maelstrom of War. So I think...
Did you ever play it in 9th ed? I know Tony and I lobbied at you hard to give it a go in 9th ed, and I can't remember if you ever did or not.
I did play it once. Okay. I wasn't the hugest fan.
Oh, that's right. You hated it because you were so used to playing the secondaries that you wanted to and having the fixed plan and whatnot, that having the chaos of not doing it really turned you off. I remember now.
But I don't think it feels as much chaotic, the Leviathan deck. So I think the Leviathan deck is actually a big improvement. I do wonder about some of the caveats where, like, we've got problems where you've got those 20-point Sisters of Battle units and arguably they're too good at scoring and stuff like that. But I think overall, like, I think that I thought I wouldn't like the deck, when they told us, like, hey, you have to play the deck, basically. Or you can do fixed, but it's much harder to score. I thought I wouldn't like the deck, but I do like the deck, and I do like 10th edition as a whole. I just have a whole huge issue with the armor situation, which I think lots of people do, right?
That's... having an issue with it is basically kind of the game at the moment, though. Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about it except wait and see things how they develop.
Well, yes. Do you know what? My that's actually a good point. Like I'm at the point where I'm winning every game now, but I'm taking loads of armor.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of people maybe don't have that flexibility of like as many units on the back, like because I've been collecting for 20-30 years, so I got loads of stuff so I can bring out. It doesn't really affect me. But if you were a newer player and you'd be building Blood Angels and you only got infantry units, then you're having a real hard time.
Most of 9th edition, yeah,
absolutely. Even before in 8th edition, like I never ran vehicles for Blood Angels in 8th edition. I ran Death Companies. You actually ran more. I feel like I ran more jump troops in 8th edition than I did in 9th actually.
Okay.
Because I think Death Company back in 8th only had 1 wound, so they were super cheap. So you just spammed loads of Death Company. So it's like, I guess if you're happy to play armor, then I think the game's great. But I guess a lot of people don't want to be shoehorned into like, hey, you just can only really play armor. So the missions are good. The rule sets are fairly good. The balance is a bit bad.
But that's more on the points and the rules and the rules in the indexes than anything else. The underlying rules of 10th ed, I'm quite happy with. The underlying mission structure and objective structure, I'm quite happy with. It places focus on the game in a different way to how it felt in 9th ed, and I'm pretty cool with that. I'm on board with it.
I got a hot take for you to answer.
Yeah, go on.
Is the twin linked assault cannon any good? Okay, cool. I said last night it was absolute garbage.
Nah.
And people
it
were...
looked cool when it first got previewed, but when you think about what it's getting used on in real games on the board these days, it's not much
it's
good,
worthless.
really.
It's absolutely worthless. Yeah, so that was the problem. You know, like the Gladiator Reaper, for example, very cool tank in 9th edition. I actually ran the Reaper over all the other Gladiators. Now in 10th edition, I just think it's hot garbage. Like it's absolutely useless.
Yeah.
I can't imagine any situation that I would ever want to run a Gladiator Reaper. So yeah,
at the moment, until a time may come when infantry are more incentivized and prevalent than they are right now. Yes, I completely agree.
I was going to say that needs to happen. Needs to happen. Hopefully it will happen.
And even then, 6 dice, you've got a roll to hit with them. You'll hit with, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 of them. Will they wound? Maybe. How many 6s are you going to roll? 1 or 2 tops. You then re-roll them because they're twin linked. You might get another 1 or 2 6s, absolute maximum. That's what, 1, 2, 3 mortal wounds if you're lucky.
Yeah. Not worth it on the main weapon on a tank, is it?
A marine and a half, yeah. Big whoop. Really not bothered, mate.
Yeah.
Or 3 GC the cultists. Yay!
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Cool. So, if there's any questions about any of the missions,
if you want us to think about any specific situations or any units that you think for your particular army would be good to take in order to fulfill any or more than one of these particular secondary objectives, we want to hear about them. Please share them.
Yeah, I'd also be interested to hear if anyone's actually finding like consistent success with fixed.
Yeah,
because I just don't see it. I quite enjoy playing tactical because in a way, I feel it is more tactical.
Yeah, I like having the flexibility per the rules of deciding whether you're going tactical or fixed at the start of every game that you play. So if you are playing a Knight's Army in a tournament, you could just say, right, I'm going to fix this game. I'll take the killing the big things and something else. Or you can just run tactical all the time based on what you want to do. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think one of the stressful things about going to tournaments was trying to build lists to score secondaries. That was definitely a thing that you wanted to do last edition. I guess now you still need to build the list to score secondaries, but I think the big takeaway from this video was I was already running like 2 or 3 units in reserve / strategic reserve every game. But I'll just tell you, I was running like the extraction squad or voidsmen, a squad of like jump troopers, so it was like Death Company with a chaplain, and then like a dreadnought. That was my reserves.
Yeah.
And I think, and like I said, I've used the dreadnought to do actions. I've used the jump squad to like do actions as well, and I obviously used the exaction squad to either maybe, like you said, shore up a backfield objective or get in a quadrant for behind enemy lines. It feels like when you actually start breaking it down, you go through all 16 secondaries. There's probably like a third of them you're thinking, oh yeah, my strategic reserves are actually pretty useful here, aren't they?
And you're limited to 2 of these sort of like allied units in 2,000 points maximum, plus 2 of the sort of allied, I'm calling them allied, but they're basically like agents of the Imperium sort of thing. Yeah. Characters in your army at 2,000 points.
Yeah, so you could take 2 cheap squads and a sniper.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have room for armigers as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Armigers will go on top of that, which could be up to 3 armigers, because 3 armigers count as 1 free blade choice as well. So, yeah, you can do that. So for 70 points, two exaction things. They're like a tool that every Imperial player really should have in their arsenal these days.
Yeah, I mean, they remind me a lot of servitors at the beginning of 9th edition, because like I ran servitors a lot, and lots of people were confused. They were like, John, why do you always run servitors? And I was like, they're 4 models, and they're so small on their bases. They just consistently score me points every single game. And ever since I started running Voidsmen, I know if you go back 6 months, there wasn't an exaction squad. Voidsmen were the exaction squad, you know. And when I started running Voidsmen, people would say like, "Oh, why'd you run Voidsmen?" I was like, "Well, they score points every game."
As soon as we're finished on this video, I'm going to go and start looking up if there's a Judge Dredd miniatures game I can pick up cheap secondhand or something, or maybe through our affiliate Element Games. Link in the description below. Yeah, absolutely. If we find it, I'll put a link down there.
Perfect. So if you enjoyed tonight's video, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. If you're not yet subscribed, then we'd love it
really
if you
helps us, and
consider
helping us is great.
doing that.
Yeah.
And the last thing to say is that you can also support the channel for about the price of a cup of coffee every month. We have a Patreon link, and we also have a YouTube membership. And normally there's 3 grots, but if this is your first episode, then you've missed a grot.
Indeed.
And you have to tune in to the next episode to see our mysterious third grot. Who's the star of the show? He's the most liked grot.
Supporting us on Patreon isn't necessary. We're not going to stop or go based on it happening, but it's a thank you for us.
Yeah.
If you appreciate what we do, if we're adding value to your game, or we're making you laugh, which generally happens more often when Tony's on here, because the balance between the 3 of us is much better than just the 2 of us. So yeah. But yeah, cool.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, say, yeah. Like we're like, if you don't do the Patreon this 1 month, then there's no more content. You're in the naughty step.
No, we're gonna talk bullshit regardless. Frankly, we ain't stopping. This is fun. So yeah.
No, yeah, we love it. So I made a slide. Look at that brilliant slide. Next time on the 3 grots, and
we haven't decided. We've got no idea what the next video is. We were hoping that next video might be to do with the points changes, but that is probably going to be the video after the next video. So that based on the timeline that they gave in the last Meta Watch, that's likely what that's going to be. We have had a Patreon request who wants us to talk about the Babylon 5 movies, which I'm not sure how much of the audience is going to be for that, but our Patreon has asked for it, so it is on the consideration list. We got a few of the topics. We could look at another index armies. We could talk about if there's actually a use for infantry. We could talk about beer for an hour. God knows. I mean, I'm not going to have a lot to say, but maybe Tony can carry that one.
Yeah. And we have been doing some videos on writing lists for doing other armies and stuff like that. So yeah, lots more to come, guys. Leave us a subscribe down below, and I guess we will catch you in the next video.
Have a good one.
Peace. Good night.